Good morning. Welcome to the first session of the third day of the program. Today's talk, I think, is going to be very exciting because it's very titled in probably in convergence with the title that we have, In Pursuit of Excellence: My Experiences in Space, Earth Science and DRDO, which is being, and we are indeed fortunate to have a very distinguished scientist, Dr. P S Goel, who is going to give us this talk. In the chair, we have Dr. Satyamurthy. Dr. Satyamurthy is currently the Director, Electronics Instrumentation and Radiological Safety Group at the Indira Gandhi Center for Atomic Research, Kalpakkam. May I kindly request Dr. Satyamurthy to kindly chair the session, sir. Thank you, sir.
Very good morning to all of you. Respected Dr. P S Goel, respected Dr. Baldev, NIAS family members, and my dear co-participants of the 29th Senior Executive Program. It is my pleasant duty to extend a hearty welcome to Dr. P S Goel. I'm sure all of you know him very well as an eminent engineer, excellent administrator. And in fact, for the last 2 days, we have been sharing in the afternoon session our technical experiences. He is a man who has served the country for more than 40 years, and he is going to share his experiences with us, and we obviously look forward to that. It's my pleasant duty to introduce him. Dr. Prem Shankar Goel started his career initiating activity on satellite attitude control system for spinning RS-1 satellite at Trivandrum, and later moved to Bangalore as part of Aryabhatta project team. He was chairman Spacecraft System Advisory Board of IRS-1, project engineer AOCS for Apple, and associate director of INSAT 2. He was head at Control Systems Division, group director of AOCS, and deputy director Mission and Control Area, associate director ISAC, and director ISRO Satellite Center from 1997 to 2005. He was Secretary, Ministry of Earth Sciences from 2005 to 2008, President of Indian National Academy of Engineering from 2007 to 2010, and later Chairman RAC DRDO. Currently he is Professor MGK Menon DRDO Chair and Honorary Distinguished ISRO Professor. Dr. Goel was awarded Padma Shri among many academy fellowships which he got in 2001. He also received Lifetime Achievement Award from Aeronautical Society of India and Distinguished Scientist Award from ISRO. I extend you a very hearty welcome to you, sir. Now he is going to speak to you on In Pursuit of Excellence: My Experience in Space, Earth Sciences and DRDO. Over to Dr. P S Goel.
Good morning to you all. Dr. Satyamurthy, Dr. Baldev, the participants of this course, and my colleagues. I see Professor Patnaik here. We have worked together for a long time, and a lot of colleagues from NIAS. It's a pleasure to be here, and opportunity to share some experiences with you. When Dr. Baldev asked me to give a talk here, I was just thinking, what should I start with? And then when he said we are talking about how do we take nation to the excellence, I thought the best way it would be, rather than giving just talks, just share some of the experiences. How we did whatever people said did well in ISRO in terms of the satellite technology, how we could do that. So these are some of the things I thought I'll just share with you. And in that process, I would like to be interactive. Please feel free whenever you feel like asking questions, because idea is not just to talk, but to interact. In the early stage when I joined ISRO, we were just in the beginning of the space program, and particularly the satellite program. I was perhaps the 6th or 7th engineer in the satellite system division in Trivandrum. And we started in a way that when my boss asked me how the satellite is stabilized or what is the satellite control system, I came from Institute of Science. I had no idea, so I said, I don't know anything. Then I asked him, you tell me. He said, go and read the books and tell me. I also don't know. So that's how we started our work. But then one thing we realized was that we have to learn, but we have to put challenges in front of us. And in that process of challenges, we decided that we'll take, obviously, some risk of failures. But how we could do that? That's largely because we had our, at that time, Satellite System Division head, Professor Yora, who took over later as a project director of Aryabhatta and also project director for so-called Bhaskara, and then later he became director of ISRO Satellite Center. So we could do that because he allowed us to do experiments with systems, with our understanding, with our technology we are developing. I just thought I'll just tell you, the first satellite itself, we were doing what is called spin stabilization. Earth is spin stabilized, but we have not really understood, at least anyone in that time in space, how spin really stabilizes the body, and how, what is, you can say when we take a top, it wobbles. What makes it to wobble? And what makes it, what is the role of inertia, what is the role of dissipation in the power? And in that process, we developed a new gadget called nutrition damper. Then we went ahead and we wanted to do a satellite Bhaskara. Our mandate was, can we do remote sensing from a spinning satellite? And to do that, no one in the world had actually done remote sensing. Remote sensing was popular mainly because of the Landsat C/D satellites of the NASA. And we were just asked to do remote sensing without having that kind of a technology. So there are two things. One is a control system, other is a payload. And we had Dr. George Joseph, very innovative person, and he came out that if we can do, look at Earth for some time, he will do the camera, which will take 2 milliseconds to take a picture, and we can transmit, read it slowly. So that we had to do so-called spin axis orientation perpendicular to the orbital plane. And for that, we just came out with the idea, a new logic altogether, an 8-pulse logic, which will orient the satellite towards Earth in a spinning mode. And I had no way, really, to prove that all that mathematics I had done, we can actually prove it on ground because this happens in space, but there is no drag. So we wanted to have a platform where actually we can simulate a body without any friction. And in that process, we developed a 8-inch stainless steel ball floating in a cup, a steel cup, and that will be having an air gap of 20 micron. At the 20 micron gap, it will be such uniform that there will be practically no friction. And we developed that with the help of CMTI. And the first time when we floated that bearing, the logic, I didn't know how to put a thrust, which will put in a satellite through the nutrition damper, to the cold gas system. So I just was tapping by hand as if giving a thrust. The spacecraft was moving perpendicular to the direction we were giving a tapping. That was the catch. And it did exactly as the mathematics said. So these are the things which we actually went through in developing these satellites, because this had not been done earlier by anyone else. Similarly, when we came to Apple spacecraft, how it started? It just started because we had an opportunity to launch a payload or a satellite on the development of a launch vehicle of the Ariane. It was offered free if we can make the satellite in time. That was the condition. And if you don't make it, obviously they said that they will make a dummy and charge us on that. When we started, immediately we said we will make a satellite which will be a forerunner for us for the future. No point just making a satellite for launching. So we said we will have a 3-axis stabilized system or satellite which will be momentum bias, because momentum bias 3-axis stabilization system is a totally technology coming for the communication satellites. If you have to do communication in future, this has to become a forerunner. So we said we will do that. The time was very short. Of course, it was we were lucky in a sense that the second development launch of the Ariane failed. In the process, they lost almost 6 to 8 months in analyzing it. So the third development launch got delayed, and ours was the third development launch. So this we took some kind of opportunity, and we did it so much of a development in this particular satellite, completely 3-axis stabilized technology. We could develop in India. Of course, there was very little help available from anywhere else. There was one review organized by ESA because they wanted to make sure that their payload is available on time. And when they visited us, most of the time, they criticized us. In fact, the person said that you people are starting from scratch, you have no idea. We had hardly, on control systems, we were hardly four or five people. And said, look, we have teams and institutions in Europe. How will you do that? So it was more of a demoralizing rather than giving us any input for that. But we went ahead with that. And also, it's an interesting story. When we launched this satellite, everything worked well, except one of the solar panel, you see two solar panels here, did not deploy. When we were developing this satellite, this thought had come to us. If the solar panel did not deploy, what we'll do? Because there was a sun sensor, which we used to look at sun using their sun sensor. And if that sun sensor is covered, then it will not be able to look at the sun. And if you don't look at the sun, we don't capture the Earth. There's a complicated sequence. We had said, look, if solar panel doesn't deploy, anyway we will not have the power, and if we don't have the power, what will we do with satellites? So there was a very casual approach taken by us, and party to that. Okay, solar panel has to deploy. But when it did not happen actually in real life, immediately we realized that we can't give up. This is a satellite which the country has asked us to do with enormous effort, with enormous confidence for ISRO. And so we went on trying to make the satellite work in spite of the fact that solar panel had not deployed. We made first attempt, we didn't succeed. We went with a very, very precise rates. We didn't have a gyro. Without gyro, in those days, I'm talking this 1981, we didn't have a gyro in the satellite. Without gyro, making a rate work from the sun sensor alone was a difficult job. And that too, the main 4-pi sensor was covered by the panel. But we came out with the logic after a day, because sun acquisition can be done, or earth acquisition can be done only in the morning at 6 o'clock local time. If you lose that, you go next day, and we lost one day. But the next day, we came out with a very innovative idea. And when I presented that to Professor Rao and Professor Dhawan, I could see in their eyes, they were puzzled. But in spite of the fact that they were not very sure what I'm talking about, Professor Rao put my hand and said, I have confidence in you, and you will do it. And next day when we tried in the reverse direction with this small new technique, it just came out exactly the way we wanted. The point is that to do these experiments, or to do these new ideas, or to implement in a satellite, we had a lot of support, that someone is there behind us to hold our hands. Similarly, when we came out with the INSAT-1, INSAT-1 is a satellite which was built by Americans, Ford Aerospace. And actually I had very little involvement in INSAT-1 because at that time, simultaneously I was busy with Apple. But the INSAT-1 failed after 4 months in orbit. And I don't know how, but I was asked to be member of the failure analysis committee of the INSAT-1. When we looked at it, first time I went to Palo Alto, I asked a few questions, and immediately given the answer was, we have no agreement, or rather we have an agreement for no technology transfer to India. So we cannot give you any technical clarifications. So obviously, if you have a question, you appoint an American consultant, he will ask a question, whatever you want, we will answer him. And if you satisfy him, he will tell you that he is satisfied. Now, I was puzzled. I said, what kind of a failure analysis we can do with this kind of an approach? I also talked to Professor Rao. He was the chairman of the committee. And he said, Goel, we can't help it because that's the agreement says. So we said we have to overcome this problem. So next day, thinking overnight, I came up with a theory. And I said openly that you have designed a satellite to fail. Now, a statement coming from an Indian who has never designed a satellite of that kind, who has given a contract to American company Ford Aerospace to design a satellite, and this chap says that you have designed a satellite to fail. So it was a kind of a shock. They said, how can you make that statement? I said, I'll make this statement, I'll prove it to you. And for next half an hour, I'm just giving them an explanation, telling them how you have failed to design the satellite correctly and you have designed it to fail. And for next 2 days, they were all explaining to me why the design should work. And all that they said earlier, they will not explain to us. Everything they have to give. So point I'm taking is that you have to take an approach sometime. You have to be innovative. If you are taking the country to the innovation through developments, you have to have a way of finding a way that they come through. In fact, why I brought this slide here was, we learned a lot in terms of designing the satellite through the INSAT 1. But that learning was not a direct. Learning was not because the Americans were very keen to tell us what they have done. They were actually hiding. They were always giving a reason that you have to really go back and explain or give your question to the Americans, and they will explain to the consultant. But that the moment we put them on the back foot, the moment we said that you have done wrong thing, they had to explain. So these are the things we have learned hard way. Of course, the same INSAT series, INSAT 2 to INSAT 1B, was a satellite which worked for almost 9 years and was a asset for the country. Actually, in fact, the TV coverage in this country, we achieved 90% of the coverage through the INSAT 1B and 1C satellites. But that was an important thing. We will also talk of a very famous satellite, IRS 1A. Dr. Kasu Rangan was the project director. And again, I had the responsibility not only to design the control system, but also put a sort of in charge of overall technology. There was something called Satellite Systems Advisory Board, which I was chairing. Again, the question was that what is the type of satellites we should be developing? Whether we are just trying to remote sensing from this, or we are developing a platform that should last for at least a decade later. And in that process, we decided that we will go for a zero momentum. It's for a new technology again, stabilized system, and we will be having a monopropellant RCS, which we are developing. Now, in this process, there were so many new things to be done. Again, we did not have the gyros of our own. We were developing a gyro, dynamical to gyro at Trivandrum, and we were not very sure whether this gyro will really be successful in the spacecraft for a mission like something like 5 to 6 years, because we were talking of IRS 1A for about a mission life of 5 years. And in that process, we said, okay, we will take up a developmental plan, we will put up a gyro, but only about 1 axis, not 3 axis, because we were not very sure of the work, because we'll put 2 gyros about 3 axis, and then we will derive the references from there. The total mission planning, which had never been done anywhere of this type. We evolved that, it was a state-of-the-art satellite. And of course, we know that IRS 1A, the type of history it has made, but there were so many, at least you can say 10 different technologies developed. And most important was, in this particular case, where again, my colleague, Dr. George Joseph, he came out with the idea. The whole world, particularly the Landsat series of satellites, they were having a sensor detector, which actually is a scanning sensor. So you scan about 1 axis, and the satellite moves, so you imaging through the scanning sensor. Now, this particular technology had been mastered by NASA or American companies. simultaneously, a new detector was coming. We call it, it's very common now, the CCD, charge coupled devices. It was just evolving. Fairchild was the company, and Dr. George Joseph said, we will not go for a detector, we will go for CCD. Immediately, there was an approach. No, how can we do that? Americans have flown the single detector. How can we go? And they were actually having a beam splitting, 4 beams and all that. Very, very complex. But he said, look, if I go for CCD, I will reduce the payload, complexity and weight by at least a factor of 10. In the sense that we will have a much more compact system, a much more reliable system, but it's a new concept. No one in the world had flown CCD. In fact, it was first time being developed, and we were the first one. But when we did that, what is the impact? Impact is tremendous. Tremendous in the sense that because of this CCD and the 3-axis stabilization gyro momentum, the technology we gained through the IRS 1A, which we launched in 1988, when we took up this project in 1983, George Joseph, myself, and one Dr. Sharma from headquarters, he was our scientific secretary, we had visited USSR at that time, USSR, Russia now, and because they were also the people who were ready to tell us how to interpret the satellite images for remote sensing purposes for various applications. So we had visited 2-3 institutions, and in terms of applications, the Russians probably were ahead of the even Americans in those days. But when a Russian chief of the space agency came in 1998, when I was director of ISAC, and we had lined up 2 remote sensing satellites in the clean room. When he visited, I just took him around, and he came back and said, Dr. Goel, India is 10 years ahead of us in terms of developing satellite technology for remote sensing. It was so pleasing. A Russian space chief, just 15 days back when we just went as students to learn, and that chief comes and tells us that we are 10 years ahead of them. Only 2 things. One was our usage of the CCD, and other was jumping for 3-axis stabilization using gyro momentum. These 2 technology enabled us to do that, to go a kind of a leap forward. But then every one of these involved a more enormous amount of risk and, of course, commitment. So that's one. Then similarly, again, we had INSAT 2 project. These are all milestone projects which I'm referring to. When we started INSAT 2, the project started soon after Apple. When we did Apple, immediately said, why not we have our own communication satellite? And again, we had many new technologies, and particularly the very high resolution radiometer is the instrument which in 70s or 80s used to cost $6 million and was not available to India because it has a imaging capability from the geosynchronous orbit. We said we will develop ourselves. We were also talking about a kind of a microprocessor-based control system, all digital control systems. Actually, just recall about a month back, there was a very nice presentation discussion in a seminar on all digital control systems for aircraft. In fact, one of my colleagues, NIL director, was making a presentation of how the digital control for the aircraft is taking a shape and how the new things are coming up. And I was just telling Shyam, look, Shyam, you are talking in 2014, a digital control system for the aircraft. We did that digital control system for the spacecraft in 1992 itself, because everything was based on digital. So the technology evolution, when we did, and with a lot of difficulties. In fact, the microprocessor in those days were not available even to the Europe for the satellite application. And it required a very concerted effort for us to get this the so-called primitive microprocessor ATC86, which we use a complete digital control system for the satellite in INSAT 2A. So these are the kind of developments we took. Then there is another challenge we got. When we were doing the satellite for PSLV third launch, that's why we call it P3, there was a Professor Agrawal that time in TIFR. He came back and said, look, Dr. Goel, you have done a lot of remote sensing now. Let's do something for space, for stars. He is basically astronomer. He said, I want to look at a star for hours and perhaps days, and sometimes even months. I want to look at the stars because the signature from the star is so weak that the noise is orders of magnitude higher than the signal. Now, how do I get this signal? The only way is we look at the star and go on integrating the signal. And when you integrate that this so-called noise and signal for months or days, the noise gets averaged out and the signal comes up. I said, this requires looking at a star. And what is your field of view of camera? He said, something like 0.2 degree. That means a 0.2 degree camera has to look at the stars with the accuracy of something like 0.02 degree towards the star and continue to look at for days and months. I said, this is an opportunity for a technologist. So immediately got charged up and talked to Dr. Kasturi and Professor Rao. Dr. said, no, it's too complex, let's not do it. But then we convinced him over time, we convinced Professor Rao. And somehow they said, okay, let's try. What is wrong? So first time we developed a satellite which had a remote sensing payload and also had a X-ray payload which can look at a star and continuously stare there for a long time. In fact, this is one satellite which was designed as experimental satellite only for 1 year, but actually this lasted, I think, almost 10 years. And this was one satellite where there was always a clash. The remote sensing fellows wanted for themselves to look at Earth, and the scientists at TIFR, they always wanted to look at the space. And in fact, this came many times for resolving who should get a priority to Professor Rao and Dr. Kasturi. But that's where we had a real challenge. Well, in the continuation of that, we really, of course, continued with again pursuing state-of-art excellence. And in that process, we designed this so-called IRS 1C, or what we call it, SOSAT. In fact, when you really look at it, IRS 1C, when we launched, it was world's best remote sensing satellite because the kind of a capability we built in with respect to the camera, a 5.8 meter optical monochromatic and the 23 meter multispectral. This was the best for any land use applications. And here, the most difficult was to put a high data rate system. Of course, today when you talk of 2014, because the electronics have been so miniaturized and we have gone to all the way technology of gallium nitride and all that, it looks simple. But in mid-90s, about 20 years before, getting a 105 megabits rate per second data rate was a very difficult task. But we took that challenge and it's become some kind of a landmark. In fact, if ISRO is known in the world for remote sensing satellite. In fact, this was particularly the satellite on which I was referring that the Russian chief of the space agency, he said that India is 10 years ahead of them. Just one more example I'll give you, and this is more towards, again, you can say either look for opportunity for creating excellence or opportunity to do something different. During Kargil War in 1999, I was just in the evening sitting, talking to someone, Dr. Kasturi. He just dropped in from the airport. He said he missed his flight because the flight was cancelled. And next flight was 2 hours later, so we were very near to airport in NL, at that time. So he just came and said, look, he suddenly asked the question, what we can do for this war? He said, okay, it's important for the nation. So I said, you give me a week's time. In a week, we'll come back a solution. So we had a discussion with the Space Application Center and came up with a proposal that we will build a satellite which will map all the borders with 1 meter resolution. 1 meter resolution in 99 was state of the art. And we felt that if we had 1 meter resolution, we will be able to track any activity that goes on the border with that resolution. Then he said, okay, after 1 week, we make a presentation. He said, go ahead. We said, okay, we'll start. In a 6 months' time, we had a complete setup ready. How do we adopt technologies from IRS 1C, etc., and come back with this project? I said, I give a project report. Somehow he felt that, no, it's all right, money is all right, you can always manage, you have so many projects, we'll give you, but you go ahead. In 1.5 years, we built that satellite. But how we built that? The Kargil issue was in everyone's mind so much that we have to save our soldiers. Everyone in ISRO, ISAC, BSSC, SAC, we had only one goal, that if we can save our one soldier, our effort is worth it. No one in the world has done this kind of a technology development. We had 13 new technologies and all complex innovating. For example, we are the first people in the world who has developed a phase array antenna, hemispherical, for giving the data only on the designated ground station. Where maybe the satellite moving, this data will come only at Hyderabad. That kind of a phase array concept we developed, implemented in TES satellite. Similarly, the step and stare. We would be able to reduce the, you can say, artificially, the integration time, increase the integration time of the imaging by reducing the rate by 5.8. The reason was we were actually carrying the same electro-optics. Optics was new, but electrical system for the RS1C were 5.8 meter resolution. We wanted to reduce to 1 meter. So that means artificially we want to reduce the rate. So there's a new concept of step and stare. The only satellite which has tried step and stare at that time was Econos. No other satellite in the world had done that. And we realized all that in 1.5 years. In fact, the satellite itself in December 2000 was in clean room. And that time, Dr. Rangan said, oh, no, now we have realized, I am confident, now we can give the project report. But he said, give a project report that doesn't go to the, beyond the commission, because I don't want the satellite to be known to the cabinet and all that. This will be approved by the commission. So we created a project report with 48.5 crore, below 50 crore, because that was the power of the Space Commission at that time. And we developed this. Trust me, first image when we gave it to the army, to the defense forces, they said, okay, this is what we wanted long back. And we were not allowed for next 5 years even to image Delhi or Bangalore. Because they said, no, all the time the satellite was used. So that's how, I mean, you can say, you can call it pursuing excellence, you can call it, you can say taking a kind of a plan to get into a total new area, but we did that. Similarly, there's only one example I'll give you. We thought that having done this, we have to do now, we have done a lot of remote sensing, we have a lot of communication, now what is new? So obviously the new would be to re-entry. Re-entry is a domain ISRO has never done that. So it was actually between Dr. Suresh, my colleague, he was director at VSSC, and myself, I was director ISAC. I said, so far, VSSC has done launch vehicle, ISAC has done satellite. We will do something together, because this requires technologies. Normally what people do, when you say a re-entry module, actually you launch it, it stays for orbit for some time, and it comes back. Typical lifetime for re-entry module is maximum 2 weeks, typically 1 week. The idea used to be there that you take images of the Earth, particularly for spying purposes and all that, bring the capsule and recover. Russians used to launch in the early 80s something like, their normal launch rate used to be 100 plus and 90% of that used to be only this kind of missions, recovery missions. They will just image and bring back the images. We said we will not do that. Now we are ahead of the technology. What we will do is re-entry we will do purely from the purpose of biological experiments or new technologies, but as far as imaging is concerned, we can always check the data because data rate and all that become high. We don't have to really do the re-entry for the imaging purposes. So we said we will have a satellite rather than just a module, which can last as long as we like in the orbit. If you want to conduct a new material like science or in the space, or because there are a lot of, you can say, new materials can be evolved in the zero gravity, you do all that, and then we will bring it back. Again, we did it something like in a short period of 3 years. In fact, it was launched after I left ISRO, but it was a remarkable success. The pity is that afterwards, of course, there has not been second SRE. That's maybe because people have stopped taking risk in ISRO. One more thing. We were just worrying of newer applications. Somewhere in 2000, there was a thinking that, look, we have achieved the, you can say, the target set by the founder, Professor Sarabhai. He said technology for space, for the people, space technology for the people. We have done remote sensing, we have done a lot of applications, we have done communications. Of course, we have not entered in a significant way to the defense, but other things we have done well. So we thought we will do something new with respect to the aspect of what we call is the navigation. And in that, everyone knows GPS is important. By the time we did that, GPS became a part of life. Of course, today, each one of us carries a GPS system in our pocket. But then, that is an American system, and that is controlled by the American defense. So what we need to do in this country? So we thought first time that why not we do a regional system? Why we have to do global system? Americans are interested in growth because they want to fight everywhere. Our interest is in neighborhood. Maintaining a 28 satellites is a very, very hugely expensive. In fact, the budget for maintaining the GPS system is of the order of $3 billion a year. Our total program in ISRO, as you know, is up something like, and in those days used to be around $500 million. Now it's touching around $1 billion or so. So you cannot afford a 28 satellite constellation in the medium orbit. So we thought, let's explore a new thing. And we said, let's try to find out whether a regional navigation system is really possible. We did a study in the up to 90s, and then we came out with a concept of Indian regional navigation system, and that's a part of thing. And just last week, the project director told me that we have achieved in this system an accuracy of 10 meters, which is as good or better than the GPS system. So these are all new innovations which we had been evolving ourselves. But then the question comes as, how this has happened? It has happened largely because there's a concept of organizational excellence. It has not happened because there is some P S Goel or some George Joseph sitting there. So this concept of organizational excellence, how it came? This is something which we need to understand. If we have to carry the country forward, it has to be cultivated. It is not something which you can say individuals can do. It's organizations have to cultivate that, and it can be nurtured. Now, once you have an organization, then it's a self-protective system. The individuals, if they are in an organization which pursues excellence in the organization, then they also develop. And once you have individuals in that, then you develop it. So it's some kind of a reproductive system. And this example I would like to give is from when we were looking at the Apple. The project director of the Apple, he said, there was a company called Huge, they have mastered the dual spin technology. And he said, we will have Apple, because it's easier to realize, we will go for a dual spin technology. Some of us said no. Dual spin technology will not take us far. We can go intermediate, we can launch something like 6 transponders, maybe 12 transponders. But we knew very well that the communication requirement is for huge power. In fact, even that time, people were talking of a 2 kilowatts or 3 kilowatts. But if you see today, the communication satellites talk of 15, even 20 kilowatts. 20 kilowatt satellite, people are talking of something like 150 transponders in Ku band. So if that is the kind of technology you have to grow, the dual spin will not work. And if we do that, we will be actually doing intermediate technology. We spent almost, let's say, 3-4 months in debating in a very and we didn't give up. I mean, maybe you can say we youngsters didn't give up. How it happened? Because the system allowed that debate that a youngsters can argue with the 10 years older. In fact, I remember, just to give another example, I was young and I was talking about spin stabilization and using magnetic field, Earth's magnetic field for some control applications. When I said that, I just was telling that, okay, this is a, you can say, sinusoidal component, and Professor Rao, he's basically a physics person, he immediately got angry and said, what nonsense you're talking about? The magnetic field is so complex. Actually, to reasonably map it, you need a 13th order legendary polynomial. So he said, Goel, why are you talking? I said, sir, simple thing. Once I'm spinning at that location is only sinusoidal. And it was at least 25 people, and I was just scientist at the sea level, just entry level. And I said, sir, I'm correct. Immediately he realized, yeah, you're right. I mean, that kind of a magnanimity that in the presence of such a large audience, to a very junior scientist, he could say, yes, you are correct. That is the kind of a, you can say, leadership. That changes, that brought a confidence. Similarly, we could realize that in spite of the fact of a lot of, you can say, difficulty. Similarly, I was mentioning about the CCD. Now, these two developments, CCD or Apple, they took ISRO at least 10 to 15 years ahead. And this is where really things got changed. Then I thought I'll just bring out this thing. It is very important for us to all realize. See, we always talk of leadership. Leadership is associated with the follower. In my perception, and this I'm making a statement now because I've been practicing this for quite some time, that the leadership has nothing to do with followership. We always say, okay, the leader, so there will be followers. If there's a Modi, so there will be following. If there are 1 million people on Twitter and all that. Well, that may be true, but leadership is a quality which we need to nurture without followership. It has to be something in our nature, in our character. We have to develop that. And just give an example is when I wrote my first paper for publication, I was just young in ISRO. I wrote that paper, and I was not very sure, very young in 1971, how to publish it. So I just gave it to Professor Rao. I said, sir, can you look at this paper I have developed? I published it. I want to publish it. I have just written it. And he used to actually come to Trivandrum only for 2 days, once in 15 days. So he said, oh, Goel, you give it to me. I'll look at it. Next time when he came, he said, yeah, paper was good. I have sent it to I have made all the corrections. Your English is very bad. My English was really bad in those days. Even now, of course, not all that good. So he said your English was bad. I have corrected that. I have sent it for publication. You will get it this paper for galley proof. In those days, we used to get galley proof. He did all that. And I got the galley proof and my paper got published. Without anything. He didn't add his name. My name was only there. So that leadership actually is a leadership which developed me. Today, if I am there because of that leadership. Question is, how many of us are practicing that? He didn't do it because he wanted a follower. He did it because that was inherent in him. Now, that is the kind of a leadership we need to build. Are we really taking care of the system which depends on us? This is where we found a lot of difference, and then I found this lot of difference particularly. I had a chance to see beyond ISRO. In fact, till ISRO, I didn't realize many of these things, but when I went to Ministry of Earth Sciences or went to DRDO, I really found, yeah, there's a lot of difference. There are a lot of things, but this is something I thought I will just mention to you, that leadership has nothing to do with following. It is something is built in. Then the second thing I realized was that with time, particularly people at our age, old age, of course, I have my people here like, I mean, who are really elder to me, and I've learned a lot from them. But normally we develop a technology. We develop a liking to what we know or liking to what we are used to. But things change. And our adaptability, if we want to carry country forward, if we want to carry science forward, we have to change. Today, the science, technology is changing so much. I'm just giving an example. We developed a bipropellant system for the INSAT 2. We call it a kind of a unified bipropellant system, propulsion system, which will do the attitude control as well as the orbit control. And we thought at that time that we are at the level where we won't have to make any change. But then the new technology came, electrical propulsion. And we felt that electrical propulsion, it doesn't make sense. But then we took some development, realized that electrical propulsion gives you an ISP, which is practically 10 times more than the chemical propulsion. So we thought, okay, we need more power, we will do in the communication satellites, because communication satellites, we are putting in something like 4 to 10 kilowatts of power. So once in a while, we can use that for the station keeping. Today, people are already launching satellites with total propulsion is electric. The chemical propulsion has been taken away. Even the boosting the satellite from the GTO to GEO is being done by electric propulsion. Now, if we don't adopt that, question is, are we doing that? We are not. So, just because something was right 10 years back or something otherwise 20 years back, we just cannot take that to be right today. We need to be changing. I just have a little feeling which I would like to share with you, particularly in the context of the national defense. We are very, very weak in adopting technology for our day-to-day applications, and particularly in the context of defense. Our space technology usage, of course, is very low, and we'll come to that later. But I'm telling you how even the, you can say, the semi-literate people in Pakistan who are using, let's say, the technology for against us, they're much more innovative than us. And you have seen the, I mean, we all know about 2611. And I have been telling to all my engineers in defense as well as in space, the terrorists were using technology much more to their advantage than we are doing. I had organized a workshop after realizing the strength of the DRDO in how to deal with the terrorists. In 2009, along with Dr. Chidambaram, we identified 13 technologies how to deal with terrorists in such a situation, if next time we have it. Now, why I made that statement was, you see how Sandeep was killed. Sandeep was killed by those terrorists in that house because someone was prompting, seeing Indian TV over a satellite phone to those fellows that a commando is coming near you. Near real time, they were getting communication. And this fellow knew that, okay, the commando is coming, so he killed him. It is a making use of not only TV, but also satellite phone and in real time. Whereas we, number one, we had a chili bomb. Chili bomb is something which was available in at that time also, and is available even 6 years later today. It has never been used. What does it do? If you have a chili bomb in this room, you've exploded. None of us are going to die, but we will be all made paralyzed practically for doing anything for next 20 minutes. Right technology. Why are you not using it? In fact, recently, when there was another situation like this, I had asked Avinash Chandar, look, why you are not sending your scientists there with chili bomb? We have not done that. There is a technology called stun grenade. It's available in India. If you throw a stun grenade, the shock wave paralyzes you for at least 20 seconds. You are totally paralyzed. Nothing you can do for next 20 seconds. By the time you recover, sometimes it can be even 1 minute. You throw on the place or a room where the terrorists are there, and then you can always capture them or empower them. We have never used it. So like that, we have identified 13 technologies which are available here in this. And none of them has been used till today. In fact, in spite of our best effort to coordinate with the security agencies. So somewhere we lack in adaptation of technology for various kind of things, and more so in the context of the national security. So adaptation to this technology, to these changes, this is part of something which we have to have, which we have not been really adopting to the level extent. I always believe that the difference between science and religion is that science is also religion. The difference is only that science is continuously evolving religion, and when we are religious in the faith sense, then we are stuck to our values or our notions of that time. I was just sharing a thought with a Christian friend of mine, Thomas, once. I said, look, you remember that when the Pope is elected, there is a smoke from the Vatican, and people decipher whether it's a black or white. And if it's a white, the selection has taken place. If it's black, selection has not taken place. Now this goes on for a few days, sometimes even weeks. If it's white, everyone celebrates. So I was just asking, look, when this practice came. So this practice came sometimes in 2nd or 3rd century. Then I said, look here, I don't know how to color the smoke myself today. So coloring smoke must be a good technology in those days. So that means one thing is very clear. The church was not against adopting technology. But having adopted in 3rd century, they don't want to change. Today you can show that result by hundreds of ways. I mean, just you can communicate through mobile. Everyone will know. There won't be any confusion. So the difference between religion and science, to my mind, is that science is also religion, but in science we adopt evolution, and religion we have stopped doing it, whether it's Hindu or Muslim or Christian. Difference is there, but not much. So my concept is that we have to continuously evolve. Sometimes I feel that individual roles are very important. And this I can say right now with conviction that you have to have that, that realization in you that you have come for a purpose, you have served your purpose, move on. Someone will take care of it. Normally, most of the problems which I am seeing, particularly in management of science, is that we start looking our role as a perennial. If I'm a director Isaac, then I am only the person who can deliver satellites and no one else. That kind of a notion builds. And once that notion builds, then we have a problem. So the second thing is, we start owning. If I'm a director Isaac, I will say, okay, it's my satellite, or it's my launch vehicle, it's my ISRO. That kind of a concepts, they are the real problems which create, and I can say today that I've gone through this process. In fact, I had a lot of ownness when I was part of ISRO. I always never believed that, okay, everything, I mean, so possessive. In fact, I remember a course like that you're attending, I was attending at Ahmedabad, IIM. And there was a lady teacher who was more of a psychologist. And when we were questioning, answering, after the questions, she only told me, Dr. Goel, you think that you own ISRO. I didn't realize the importance of the sentence that day. But later, when I moved to the earth sciences, and then I felt that, look, when I went there, I felt that I had a role to play. My brief was, create Ministry of Earth Science out of Department of Ocean Development. And of course, the second main thing was that I was to create a tsunami warning system, which was supposed to be the best in the world. These were my two prime goals. So when I went there, I knew that, okay, having come from ISRO, no, I don't own this department, but I have to do this. So this is the role. In fact, it's the first time you can say in the history of this country that within a year, I had integrated the department from taking, let's say, the ocean, the atmosphere, and also solar together and create that ministry. But then this thing became clear that it is a role you are playing. Similarly, when I came to DRDO 3 years back, I had mentioned to Saraswat that, look, today, role of space in national security is practically zero. And it's true. I can describe in more details to you if we have time. So I said, look, we need to create the capability. If we have to give our armed forces an edge over, let us say, Pakistan, this is one area, because they don't have a strong space program. We have it. At least that edge we can give. Secondly, if you have to match anywhere, Chinese. See, we don't have to fight war against Russia or America or Europe, but these are our immediate concern. The usage of space by Chinese is so high level. Just to give you an example, there's a concept of ELINT, electronics intelligence. In electronics intelligence, we really try to map various kind of sources like radars and all that, and try to see that if there is a war, what is our first target to hit? In fact, you remember when the Iraq war took place, Saddam Hussein was thinking that, okay, Americans will have the so-called mother of war and all that. In one day, Americans destroyed all the sources of emission, including all the, you can call it repeaters stations for the signal. Every one of us destroyed. And as a result, Saddam Hussein in his room, he did not know what is happening. Total connectivity was lost. That means you are preparing for the war using ELINT technology before the war itself. You don't do anything. But then there's a war, you just do that. So today, Chinese have got 3 constellations, 3 formation flying, 4 satellites each at a distance of 10 kilometers in XY plane. They go everywhere, pick up this signal, and by interferometry, because there's a baseline of about 10 kilometer, you can point out that location with an accuracy of better than 100 meters. That means if the radar is located anywhere, the satellite formation flying gives you a location within 100 meters. So I said, I would like to give a seed, rather not give, seed a technology for space, or space for national defense in DRDO. And I'm very clear that I came here, I said I'll go for 3 years. I'm going to do this and get out. That seed should grow. My strength will lie only if the seed can become into tree or not. Now this is something very important. I'll just give you one more example of this space for national defense. See, we recently discovered this boat. You know, you have heard that NTRO decoded the communication. How it came? Is our understanding of space technology only can give that. Because when you are in ocean, when you are communicating through a Thuraya satellite. There is no other methodology in this region to talk from ocean other than the Thuraya satellite. What does Thuraya satellite do? Thuraya satellite has got something like 248 beams. Each beam they call it cell. That cell is actually a beam where you really communicate from. Now, if you have understanding of the Thuraya satellite and if you have proper equipment, you can find out that from which beam this communication went. The beam diameter may be of the order of something like 30-40 kilometers. I don't remember exact numbers now. So you know that the person who is communicating is in this 30-40 kilometers. So what we have developed this technology, of course this is developed technology largely with the help of DRDO, where we can know now from Thuraya communication where from this is originating. So if fellow is using, at least you know this. So we need to bring technology into defense thing. Of course, there's another area we have done well. It's not that we have not done well at all. The other area is tapping the communication. When you say that, okay, this is happening, the Haqqani network or this fellow is trying to disturb on 26 January, Obama is coming, all is coming only from one source. And that is our capability to trap the communication from across the border using the so-called communication intelligence. And there's a separate contribution from a lab, DRDO lab, it's called DLRL. Okay, so this is something which we really need to adopt. We have to continuously adopt for that. I just wanted to tell you in that context only, when I took over as director ISAC in '97, I just went to pay my respect to Post Dhawan in his room, and he said, "Sir, I have taken yesterday." He was a fatherly figure for me. He said, "Look, Goel, I'll tell you, remember only one thing." I said, "Yes, sir. When you leave your office in the evening, think that tomorrow someone else is coming. And he should be able to continue your work tomorrow from then onwards." Believe me, that was a management lesson which is probably has overweighed any of the management lessons in my life, and I have not forgotten. So this cast your role as a player, actually what he said is just part of it. I would also really suggest to you or communicate to you, if you want to take this country to the excellence, when you leave your in office, I'm just narrating what President told me, that you leave with a view that tomorrow someone else should be able to continue work. You should not require your presence tomorrow. The other aspect is we really many times don't take our role to the logical end. We became, this I'm seeing particularly in my experience recently in some of the interactions. I remember being control engineer, a part of a joke. You can say it's a joke, but it's true. One of my teachers, he was an excellent control engineer. When I was studying in ISC, an industry person came and he said, "Sir, I have a problem." in a process problem, and some equipment he was telling that it is not working. Can you help me? He said, I can help you, but give me the transfer function. In control systems, the equations actually, they bring out a transfer function. And once you give me transfer function, I'll give you the solution. Oh, industry fellow, he has not heard the name, what is transfer function. So what the joke is that, okay, he went back. We didn't have that. I was recently talking to a engineer in DRDO. I had an application requirement. I said, look, I need a data compression. It was again a satellite for defense application. I said, I need a data compression. I need to compress the data. It's a very different kind of application, not like a normal imaging. It's actually synthetic aperture radar. So he said, sir, no problem, I'll do it. Then first he said, sir, give me this data, give me this. Then 3 months over, I'm just trying to, every time I ask him, he puts a question mark to me. Sir, you give me this. I tried to get them, I said, look, this approach, okay, you give me this, then I'll give you that. It doesn't work. If we are taking a task, we have to have that approach that we have to commit ourselves. And this is a part of whether I'm making a satellite or when I take up a project, I don't have to really pose questions to others. I have to go out of the way to get the information and complete. This is something which I feel is lacking and is lacking in many places. I just was giving an example that suppose you are talking of a new ministry. I never realized that. New ministry is not just writing a cabinet note or even a simple task like getting a new project. I never knew how Delhi works till I went as a secretary. And I first time learned this terminology like committee of secretaries and how you have to really manage. I mean, you have to coordinate practically with the 23 departments if you want to move your project. And how do you do that? You have to go and practically talk to everyone, brief them. In fact, I was telling our friends in DRDO, they have lived in a situation where part of the Ministry of Defense which does not have interaction with the rest of the government. In fact, why today we are finding some of the problems that there is a lack of, you can say, delivery, partly because they have not learned how Delhi works, being in Delhi. Because Delhi works in a very different way. You have to please your finance people on every step. And if the finance person is not, in fact, in Delhi, if you really see any file department of DRDO, you would find that 90% of the time is taken by the finance people, or maybe sometimes 99%. Why? Because there is no communication. The finance person always treats that every file, whosoever initiated, he is a thief and he has got only ulterior motives. Now, whose responsibility is to explain that what I am doing is for the national work? It is the responsibility who initiated that. Now, to do that, number one, you have to be really honest. Secondly, you have to convince that this is in the national interest. If you are able to do that, most of the time we think, okay, I have done my work. I pushed my file. The fellow IFA is not screening, or Additional Secretary of Finance is not clearing, or the Finance Secretary is not clearing. But we have to really convince them. I'll just give an example. When we were developing a heat pipe, we developed a heat pipe in ISRO for the satellite work. And we decided that we will not be able to produce these numbers in ISAC. So we will go and ask some industry. There were very young 3 people left BAL. There's one ISRO group, they joined that time and they created. So someone said, sir, they are very dynamic people. I called them and they said, look, sir, we can't do it. We are, but somehow we felt that they should be able to do that. And they said they wanted some help, money help. So I called my Additional Secretary of Finance, SK Das. I said, look, Das Saab, we need to help them, because otherwise the heat pipe will not come. And we were importing only from France or Japan, and a very huge cost for all communication satellites. So I said, we'll produce at least 20% of the cost, and we can do that. And he got convinced. I don't know what method he found. He funded 10 crore from ISRO, but he found that method. Today, I think they have already produced heat pipes worth 400 crores. Now that much amount of foreign exchange we have saved. In fact, 400 crore is a lesser money because this is at Indian cost. If we had imported, probably would have paid by now 2,000 crores. Now, to do this, you need a conviction that yes, this has to be done, this is in the best interest, and there's nothing for me in this. The moment these parameters are met, things happen. I have not really found any difficulty myself in dealing with finance. Because I'm just telling you, because most of you are government sector, and you will be facing a lot of problems with finance, and particularly the defense people. It is your ability to convince and convict your own conviction. You can carry these things. Many times, when you get into the new systems, you find that things are not for your liking. When I took Department of India Meteorology, I had real difficulties. Whatever I touched, I found problems. Technology was at least 30 years or more older. Mindset was even older than that. If I said, look, the technology is changing, you have to go to the numerical modeling. The so-called your approach of trying to see, okay, winds is like this, so it will rain. It doesn't work. Models have come up. And I was actually not knowledgeable myself in the area of atmospheric sciences. I had some help from people like Professor Narasimha and all that, who were my guide, you can say. They said, no, sir, it cannot work. So what do we do now? There is a 6,000 people department which is obsolete, not ready to change. Can you just change a director general like that? You find that, okay, 3 generations below also are like this. I said, look, your promotions are not proper, so well, let's bring FCS. Every scientist jumps on flexible complementing scheme. IMD said, no, we don't want it. Why? Because, they didn't tell me the reason, but because all those useless people sitting at the top, they were afraid that someone from the bottom will come up and boss them. Because FCS allows that. FCS allows the so-called excellence to come to the top. They didn't want that. And there was a lot of vested interest in procurement. Now, how do you do that? Just by injecting people. In fact, the current IMD head, Rathod, he was an NCM-RFWF, and he was doing agrometeorology. And I said that time, Bhukanlal, I'm bringing you. No, sir, you can't bring. I said, what do you mean by you can't bring? Sir, he was a very junior person. They have given 5 promotions in NCM-RF. Now he'll come as a boss. He will sit number 4 or 5, and where he should have been number maybe 200. So he has come up. We cannot allow him to come. I said, look, I'm secretary. This is my job. To force Rathod's re-entering into IMD was such a difficult task that I had to really not only brief my minister, I had to brief cabinet secretary, I had to brief many other people, principal secretary, prime, because I knew that this person was going to make life my hell. So I had to do all that and then bring Rathod there. You have to now pick up, and for that, you have to have again your own strong conviction. Again, bringing the numerical modeling. So I talked to my minister. I said, look, we have to bring a new environment. So we synthesized a project costing around 200 crore. And IMD said they will not take this project. You bring your numerical modeling capability, we will not adopt it. So I said, we brought this through NCMRF, another small organization of 200 people. There are 6,000 people. So we developed all their capability, and they said they are trying to force use. Today, I'm sure you will realize that, or you will feel that, if IMD says it will rain, or today you have some faith. You go back to the 2005 and 2006, the normal joke was in Delhi was that IMD says it will rain, then definitely you need not carry an umbrella, because it will never happen. But if this is that is a sunny, then you better carry. It was the absolute no credibility. Now this credibility has come today because of the transformation of that organization. But to transform that organization, it has required a lot of perseverance, a lot of changes, a lot of convictions. Now, to pursue, I think I will have discussed that. We'll just a little bit more now because time is less. This other thing I just wanted to mention to you was that in technology particularly, the system engineering as a system is something missing, which is a strength of ISRO. If ISRO, and also to some extent, and not full extent is atomic energy, these two organizations, they work as a total system. But even when I went to, let's say, other systems, including DRDO, I found that everyone looks only his individual things. Now, it's okay when you are looking for integrating things, but sometimes you get a disruption of the technologies. Of course, examples is that what happened to our telephone system? The mobile has changed. This is a disruptive technology. Now, same things are happening today in every field of life. You're going to have self-driving car. You're going to have a soldier as a system. The soldier is not a soldier. It's a total system. The concept is evolving. Today, it's possible, and people are all talking that if my soldier is fighting in the front, he will have all the information on his 7-inch tablet coming via satellite, all about surroundings, how many people he has to face in the front. Everything information should be available. Is a mechanical assisted soldier. A soldier with mechanical assistance should be able to lift 200 kg just like that. Now, these systems are coming. Even in satellites, whatever we were doing with the, let's say, the front optics for IRS-1A was being something like 110 kg, including electro-optics, the electronic systems and all that, focal plane assembly. Today we are able to do that 10 kg. Tomorrow, with the adoption of new technology, today one FPGA, let's say from Xilinx Vector 5, gives you so much of a performance of like everything it does in one single chip. So if we are able to not able to adopt the technology, we will be lagging far behind. The complete avionics on a satellite or on a air platform is coming on a chip. What we call is system on a chip. It's evolving. And of course, formation flying and some of these things are happening. So we have to now start thinking as a system. Just wanted to give you a thought that sometimes when we pursue excellence, we look for opportunities. They come and they create it. And the examples I wanted to give you was, which I have already discussed. See, when we look at Apple, I gave example. They had announced that they will give this launch free. Anyone? No, it was, let's say, Genius of Vasgam, my colleague, who said that, yeah, why don't we jump it? So the opportunity when they come, you have to say that you jump on those opportunities. Sometimes we create those opportunities. Another example of the creation of opportunities. When we were discussing, let's say, what we can do remote sensing after the TES, after IRS 1C 1D, what we can do further. Then Dr. Rangan said that, look, can we do something which again bring people towards the space? Now everything has become, we have got all these applications going through. How we can attract people towards the space? In fact, Chandrayaan is or was a sort of part of that evolution mechanism. And we came up with after a lot of discussion that if we have a mission to moon, then we will bring the attention of the whole country. And of course, it was followed by Mangalyaan. Now, I can tell you very confidently today, technology content of Chandrayaan is not very high. In fact, it's only mission management. If you really see what has gone to technology, the IRS 1C 1D technology is much more complex. TS is much more complex. But I'm sure none of you will remember TS or IRS 1C 1D, but all of you remember Chandrayaan. So this is something which we really need to see. How do we create those opportunities? Those were the opportunities which we created. Similarly, I would say in TS was an opportunity we created. I have put here a question mark on the LIC, what we call is low intensity conflict technology. I have put in a negative sense. We created that opportunity in 2009 with the seminar with Dr. Chidambaram and myself. We got all the agencies, as I told you, 13 technology we demonstrated. Till today, we have not really brought them to logical end. I call it missed opportunity. So, just to kind of summarize, we have to create a culture of organizational excellence. That means we need to nurture things like brainstorming. But once you have a storm, you have to form on your final decisions. We need to bring a system of rewarding excellence and innovation. A system which does not recognize excellence can never pursue excellence. I hope all of you are familiar with the Peters principle. It says that everyone reaches to the level of his incompetence. And it's true. If you allow a person to grow, he reaches level of his incompetence. Now, most of the time we are not allowing that person to grow. There's a separate issue in our system. The point is that it's very important that for everyone we allow. But then what do you do with that when he reaches his incompetence? We need to create opportunities for them also. If you really take example in the political sense, if the minister doesn't perform, a good prime minister will make him take him out of that and put some very cozy post, like a chairman of some commission or something like that, which doesn't have much of an implication, and you set him right. Dr. Kasur Rangan used to say that I will create a wing in the ISRO headquarters of advisors, in the sense that every one of those people will be given a very good room, a good coffee, tea, one PA, or maybe shared, and very nice name, but never ask for their advice. So all those people who have reached the Peters level, give them a room, good room, but bring the youngsters in so that these people don't block. Now this is something very important. So if you, it's a useful principle. We have not allowed this to work at all. We have not allowed people to evolve to their incompetence. So we need to allow that and also learn how to manage to have reached that level. This is another important, openness in accepting failures. And this is, I found that the defense systems are very bad in that. I'm not going to give examples. I've dealt with so much of them. We always hide. All failures are hidden. Actually, that was our strength in ISRO. I remember when we were discussing the PSLV failure once, someone had said, sir, it will create a lot of problem if people come to know that we have done some silly mistake. And it was Dr. Gupta. He said, doesn't matter. If we accept, then we'll correct it. And I think because of that culture, today PSLV is one of the most successful launch vehicle in the world. One of the most successful. That we accept failures. And of course, if we really are pursuing excellence, then we need to think big, more or less near impossible goals. And I have explained some of these which we have taken. Another problem which I found in ISRO also, and it is happening many times in the government system, that we postpone the decisions. You are all managers, and it's my conviction that many times, even if the decision is not so correct, it's better than delayed decision. Many times when things are not to our liking, we start confronting, isn't work, particularly in the government system. I try to do that with the IMD, but then, we can't fight the system. You can confront but not fight. But we need to have perseverance and we need to share goals. If you share goals, it works. It has worked. I can say that the India Military Department is transformed is largely because of that. I think we are running short of time, so I'll just try to give concluding remarks. My feeling, my strong belief is that India deserves much better place in the Committee of Nations, and some of you who can really drive, and also the younger generations. When I was talking to Dr. Baldev Raj in the morning, that really we should really bring the leadership in the age group of 30s and 40s. If we do that, then we can drive India to the excellence. Because that's our rightful place. We need people with strong individual characters. This is something very fundamental. Just because if I'm a good scientist, is good, but not good enough. We need to nurture individual excellence, but we have to have an environment of the organizational excellence. But personally, I have, sometimes I call myself as a wandering scientist. I've wandered from ISRO to Ministry of Earth Sciences, DRDO, INE, etc. But I feel that whatever is the state of science today, if we are not in the best state, is not because of politicians, but because of scientists ourselves. It's scientists who have failed the country. In fact, many times I feel as an engineer that we engineers have failed the country. Whether it is fighting abilities with the, in the war, or whether it is a delivery into the product. See, I just was asking someone, we have so many scientists. If you really go to any level like agriculture, I think the only product which we have produced in India is Sonalika, the tractor. Otherwise, everything we are getting from imported. We are the largest railway people in the world, largest railways in the world. All our railway engines are imported or at least produced under license. All our wagons, they are all produced under license. So who is responsible for that? You take anything. The failure lies with the engineers, and I feel I'm part of it. It's not the politicians who have failed, but mostly the science. So I personally believe that if we are willing to learn continuously, we are agile in terms of our learning aptitude, and we have a commitment to pursue scientists, I think we can definitely lead India to excellence. Thank you. If there's any question, I'll be happy. Yeah?
Very much for taking us here, sir, here, on the corner, right here.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much for taking us through the experiences of your life and with this lovely talk, which is, I think, straight from the heart. we all understand this being from similar organizations wherein the management problem, the leadership challenges and the failures are part and parcel of any planning. My question relates to the operational or technical level problem which the defense forces are facing as far as the satellite imagery is concerned, sir. We do use satellite imagery to make out of the enemy dispositions, their defenses, their bunkers, and we plan out our operational plans during peacetime for the war which may never come. However, the problem that we face is that the sources that we rely on today are firstly the aerial photographs which the Air Force provides us, the UAV feeds which come from the remotely piloted vehicles and unarmed aircrafts, as well as the satellites. None of them are meeting our technical level requirements because of the problem of the clarity not being so good, sir. Though you mentioned that you got 1 meter resolution satellite imagery which is being given to the defense, it is not very clear. Firstly, it takes time. We have the procedure wherein we give in our bids, put in our demands, and takes about 2 months for the demand to mature. So it is not real time, firstly. And secondly, it is not very clear. Today, as a commander of a force, when I have to plan my operation, I have to depend on the Google Earth or Google Earth Pro, where the clarity is so good that I can make out each and every bunker of the enemy, sir. Is there a problem in our systems, or we are short on our equipment, or what is the issue, sir?
Are you ready to listen to criticism?
Absolutely open, sir.
Okay. How many years you have been in this business of interpretation of the imagery? How many years you have been there in this business of imagery? You personally?
No, the defense forces have started.
No, I'm talking about you personally. How many years you have been in this business of interpretation of the imagery, look at the images?
Maybe 15, 20 years.
About 10 to 12 years.
Are you sure?
Of course, it may not be satellite imagery. We had aerial photographs.
I tell you, the problem is that we are lacking creating a professional group in armed forces. I had a system in ISAC when I was director of ISAC. The people will come from the Army, Navy, and Air Force, spend 3 years with us. I'm talking 90s. And we will train them, and then they will go back. And at least it happened for 8-9 years, and I checked. After the person is spending 2 years or 3 years with us, when he goes back, sir, I'm going to different room, and when one Air Force person said, I'm going to fly now, I'll never go back to this imagery. Those people whom we trained, none of them went back to the discipline of related to the application of remote sensing, either in Navy, Army, or Air Force. And finally, I had to tell Dr. Kasturirangan that we are wasting our time with these people. They never go back to their discipline. The Army or Navy has not created the cadre where the science can be pursued for a long time. Number one. Number two, in the process of trying to say that we are, let's say, very sacrosanct, we will not involve, this will not give it to the defense, to the civilians and all that, we isolate. And that isolation process, but the point is, we need to have a continuous, see, adrenaline has become also a stereotype. You need to have a scientific collaboration, much more openness. The data is available. We have much more data than Chinese have in terms of remote sensing cartography. Cartography, we are probably next best only to the US. And definitely much better than Google. But we are not organized ourselves. ISRO is also feels, okay, it doesn't matter, we'll give you the data, but job is over. I have dealt with that. ISRO does not want to get into that because we don't get into that, no, you're not welcome there. So we need to create more openness, more involvement of the scientists. There are excellent scientists in the country. The defense armed forces have to open. And you have to create a cadre where a person stays there. Most of the people, they come for 3 years. I will give you NSG.
The Director General of National NSG, Garth told me that the whole NSG, the commando stage only comes for 3 years. 1 year he comes, he learns. 2nd year he is useful. 3rd year he only plans where to go. Whole NSG has become a joke. But I can't tell you openly. Someone will shoot me. I'm just telling you personally. It has come directly from the Director General of the NSG, National Security Guard, National, what's that? Guards.
So, issue is we need to be more professional in armed forces. We need to create professional
Cadres. Like you have a pilot as a cadre, you have to have the picture interpretation or the satellite interpretation as a cadre.
Sir, we have photo interpretation as a cadre since
we have
1960s.
total teams,
I don't think you're aware, sir.
I'm aware.
We
Well, we have it.
We have it, sir. Last
And they
20
stay in
years
that
we have.
field, sir.
There are people who are looking at it, they are doing it.
That's
They are
what
not
we-
scientists. You have to have scientific cadre who evolves continuously.
No, our job is not science, sir. Our job is to use science.
Use, sir.
Yes,
but
sir.
you need to involve scientists who are doing updating continuously basis. You need
No,
that.
we are doing that. We have DIPAC, sir. It's a huge tri-service organization. You are aware of that.
I'm aware of TRIPAC.
It's a huge scientific and military organization. What more do we want?
The data we have, there is no reason for us to look at Google. IRS
that-
data
yes,
is
that may be
much
true, sir.
much more precise, much more accurate, much
I'm
more
sure,
details.
I'm sure you have the data, but from our side, the photo interpretation is a branch, like a flyer. It's a separate
Give
branch.
them a career, 20 years, 30 years. They should be there.
Sir, they are
Yes,
in
sir,
a-
they stay in that, sir.
Yeah, they are staying there, permanent.
Okay.
There is a lot of, I don't say brain drain, but not the best people are coming to the scientific community, sir. It is a matter of concern. You see the IITs or IIMs, you have an engineer, you have so much of a backup of persons or institutions to prepare them, but as a graduate from IITs and engineering, he does not come to the scientific community, sir. What is the reason and how India should do to get the excellent people in these organizations?
You see, one slide I deliberately skipped was creating a brand. Why people do not come? What do you look for? He looks for two things. One is, of course, obviously finance is very important, money is very important, but also the brand value. People do come to ISRO. Why they come? Because there's a brand value. You see, there is more attraction towards ISRO or atomic energy than DRDO. If the Prime Minister says that you can take your own time, statement, the brand value comes down like anything. So we need to create a brand value. If you are able to create a brand value, people will come. Actually, I can tell you that today's salaries are not that bad that people will not survive. Of course, we may not be giving the same salaries of the MNCs. No doubt, we just can't match that. For example, the maximum salary as a secretary I have earned is 80,000 basic. Whereas my son-in-law is just done MBA. Today he draws about 55 lakhs per year from for a very useless job. I mean, intellectually, his job probably will be not even 1/10 of mine, but he gets 55 lakhs per year, just because he has got a MBA. So I agree that we cannot manage the MNCs or this kind of a management salaries. But still these salaries of scientists today are adequate for him to get enough food, enough reasonable standard of life. But then what will attract him is whether we are giving the brand value. So we need to create a brand value in our system. If we are able to do that, people will come. Just to give an example, I mean, let's say I was talking IMD. Today I am able to attract Indian Environmental Department much better scientists than we were able to do 5 years later, earlier. Because earlier, the image was so bad. Now image is improving. We are getting much better scientists. So we need to create, whatever organization you are doing there, you need to create a brand value of the organization. And for that, obviously, you have to do a lot of hard work. But brand value is important. See, why, let's say, our current Prime Minister is really doing well? Because he's creating that brand value. So, brand value, to my knowledge, to my mind, is very important to attract the young talent. And I don't believe that all the talent lies only in IITs. In fact, to my mind, IIT system has been spoiled by coaching. Today, a best brain will not be able to enter IIT if he is not coached. So the coaching has really spoiled the whole system. So you can get a person who has not been coached, and if he has gone to other engineering college like even NIIT, he will probably be better than IIT who has been coached. So I don't believe that just every best brain has gone to IIT only. And the coaching has spoiled the total education system in this country. And not much we can do about it.
But we still get good people. There's not a problem. Science is still attracting. I'm sure Dr. Valderaj will tell you, atomic energy still gets very good students. So it still gets good students. I don't see the issue.
Last 2-3 years in our training school, many of the people who worked in TCS, Infosys, which are the brand names, have resigned and joined the atomic energy department. They feel that, sir, what is there in writing computer programs and other stuff? We want to do the science. In fact, in BRC training school, when I joined, of course, that is 36 years back, 16 of us have come from BRC to IGCR. Out of the 16, 8 people are university gold medalists. There? Yes, your IIM, but that is, I think we have to live with it. Maybe. Any other question?
One question. Sir, you in one of your slides, you said we tend to assemble subsystems to create products. Now, whenever you are looking at a product, generally, the present trend is the same. Do you think that it should not be adopted?
See, idea is that you have to have a total system level approach. Unless we have that, unless we have a, you see, what we are doing is, you just take an example of a car. You can assemble through getting carburetor separately or this separately and all that. But that won't work in the long run. In a long run, you have to have some people, at least in the system, who understand the total car as a system. Because why is happening? See, the evolution when it takes place, many functions are taken up by something else. I mean, olden days you were doing a mechanical injection. Today, whole thing is controlled by a computer. Now, unless a person understands the complete combustion system and how the computer works, he cannot make a computerized based injection system. So the system engineering approach is what you need to adopt for your problem solving, whether you are making a missile, you are making a satellite. In fact, I have seen that, I was just looking at sitting as a review, as a very high level review of a missile. I'm just going to give an example, I don't want to name anything on that. And I found that each one of us talking about the system, and there was a problem came. You just start, no, your system is bad, your system is bad, you start accusing each other. There's no one who looks at an integrated approach. So the complex systems, aircraft, missiles, satellites, launch vehicles, they require a system engineering approach, which is missing. And without that, you can't today, you do look at a UAV. We are talking of a solar powered UAV, we are talking of a system as a soldier. System as a soldier is a concept where the soldier will be enabled technologically to do multi-functions. He is not only the information technology, he is not only the weaponry. He is able to adopt even to a newer things coming, newer challenges coming. I mean, if you see American soldier, how much weight he carries, something like 35 kg he carries. Even with that 35 kg, obviously his motions will be, reflection will be poor in terms of agility. But then he is enabled so much that he can probably fight 10 of our guys at a time. So we need to bring system engineering approach into our, you can say, if we want to pursue the excellence. Without that, we just cannot.
You are associated with DRDO now. You know DAE very well. Don't you think these three departments coming together and sharing the knowledge will help the country in a much better way?
See, in a sense, they are sharing. I don't see any really lacuna, or because these departments are open departments, they are not closed departments. The interaction is so high. I know DAE has got a very close interaction with the DRDO in terms of materials, and otherwise we couldn't have done the project like Arihant, whatever, no. It's a very close interaction. Similarly, I was in space, so I know that we have a very close interaction with atomic energy. Yes, the DRDO interaction with some of these departments like space has been less, partly because of some restrictions. ISRO does not like to be seen participating directly in the defense. There's a lot of criticism, there's a lot of international issues on that. It's a part of international politics, and our, let's say, the leadership is not able to stand against that, in the sense that as a policy, we have not made a policy. In fact, if you really say, I was just talking to someone else, in India, we don't have a space policy. So we do whatever is convenient today and what's convenient tomorrow. But as a policy, we are not able to stand that, okay, we will work for, let's say, defense. We are not able to say so. India is the only country where the civil space is totally isolated from the military space. In fact, there's no military space. Elsewhere, the military space is primary and civil space is offshoot of that. In US, the NASA budget has been of the order of something like $16 to $18 billion every year for last 20 years. The Pentagon budget on space has been more than that. They don't give the figures, but there has been more than that. In China, the civil defense is very little, is actually basically civil space is very little, military space is much more. Civil space is outcome of that. But in India, for some reason, we are not able to take that view. So this partly space is kept out of that. But I think informally there are a lot of interactions taking place. So I don't see an issue on technology or other interactions. There is enough.
So the Navy has launched its own satellites. Now it is so. Air Force is launching its own satellites for its own use.
Yeah.
There is work. They have the naval purely.
No, I'm aware of that. See, basically, you are making use of the technology developed for civil. You are now tuning the technology for the armed forces by putting a coverage into the ocean. So it becomes a Navy satellite. It's nothing but the, you can say, the extension of the GSAT-2. You are actually doing that. But technology has been developed primarily for the civil, and we are using for defense. Nothing wrong in that. It's a good thing. But there are many technologies which are actually exclusively for defense. We are not developing that. This is where actually I'm trying to put some foothold on the in DRDO.
Okay. In fact, we ran short of time. We'll thank Dr. Goel for his wonderful talk. As a token of respect from NIAS and Director of NIAS, I request Mr. Tamban Melot to give vote of thanks.
Good morning again, once again, and thank you, Dr. P S Goel, for an exciting and, in fact, one of invigorating talk this early morning, and which led to a lot of, in fact, discussions. In fact, I think one of these best talk which we had so far, because it actually tests the topic which we wanted, which what are those moments in your life which made you what you are? I think that was something which he shared with us, which. In fact, this I was talking yesterday actually, that kind of thing which really makes a lot of difference to us, because that those kind of difficult situations, how did you handle? Like, one best example which I was talking about, I think, which I was also, we still keep talking actually, is that the transformation of IMD. A lot of people, I think, at that time was talking about actually, is it a right decision actually, because it's such a mammoth organization bringing to along with smaller organization. But if you look, the hindsight actually, basically look back. I think one of the best decisions actually, I think, why, the MOEs itself is now, showing up actually, the results of it. So earlier those days considered as actually that was IMD as a liability, now it's considered IMD as a really, price for MOEs. So I think that is something, those kind of, gems of wisdom, I think, which we really, got benefited. Thank you so much, sir.